Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Last Honest Realtor podcast. I'm your host, David Fleming. Thank you so much for joining me here today as we find ourselves about halfway through the fall market, if you can believe it. That's crazy to me, but keep in mind that the fall market is essentially half as long as the spring market. Now, it's a bit silly because the spring market, if you can call it that, starts in winter and ends in summer. Spring market's basically January through June. The fall market's basically September, October, November. So spare you the math, it is about half as long. And now, as I said, we are halfway through. Now, what I wanted to talk about today is the market and the road ahead. We can call this using 2025 to predict 2026, if you will. We can talk about how this is essentially a catch up on, well, the September statistics, which we have and which I've written about on Toronto Realty blog. We can call this essentially, I don't know, a litmus test, if you will. But what I've deduced is that we have enough data just through September to tell us exactly where we are and exactly where we're going. Now, stats don't lie. And I will tell you in advance, if you don't like statistics, I don't want to say this is going to be boring. Might be a bit dry, might be a bit tough to follow. I love stats. In fact, those that know me are aware that I am an incredible nerd. I collect statistics on everything. I'm obsessed with sports statistics and sports that I don't even follow. I don't watch tennis. It's kind of boring. But damn if I don't update my spreadsheet after every major championship so that I can then print it out and add it to the giant book of sports statistics that I keep on my bed. Yes. I love stats. And today we're going to go through a ton of real estate stats. I have a couple of sayings about real estate in Toronto. Well, the first saying I have is about Toronto. Two things people love to talk about in the city of Toronto: the Leafs and real estate. Now, as it pertains to real estate, and I think you'll find this funny, okay, the two most common questions about the Toronto real estate market. The first question: how's the market? I know that sounds very silly, but it's some variation of how's the market, what's happening in the market, what's the market doing? I get asked that all the time. In fact, my wife's grandfather, every time I saw him, he's passed last year, and I said one of the things I missed about him the most, even as he was 96 years old at the very end: Dave, how's the market? Old guy, every single time he saw me: how's the market? Now, the second question that people love to ask in Toronto is, where's the market going to go? There's the joke. The two questions that people ask about the Toronto real estate market are in present tense and future tense. And so those are the two questions that we are going to analyze today. So some of this data could be, I don't want to say stale dated because it is September, but we are in October now, as I said, post-Thanksgiving, we're halfway through. So let's look at the September data, figure out what has happened there, and use that data to evaluate where we are and where we are going. Now, September to me, and to many people in the market, is this holy grail of real estate months. Now, there's this common, I'll say misconception, to be fair. I was going to say there's this common idea that May and June are the best months to sell. And I would call that a misconception because, believe it or not, history has shown that by the time you get to June as a seller, the market's over. Everyone's bought. People start in January. The market runs up. By the time you get to June, people are focused on school and ending in summer. Now, May's a really good month. But again, I would say maybe it's a bit too late. I have personally always felt March and April are the best months if you're a seller. But as it pertains to September, there's this idea that September is, if not May, the best month of the year in which to sell because there's this pent-up demand. So if you're a seller, you're thinking, look, I don't want to be in the market in July and August, and the whole buyer pool is on vacation, but you know what's going to happen in September? It's going to take off. Every buyer who had their search on hold for summer is going to come back. Every person who's going to become a buyer, who spent the summer thinking about what they want to accomplish in the fall, they're going to enter the market. So if we look at the month of September, we're going to, and it's absolute gangbusters and it's red hot, okay, that's a great sign moving forward. But what if it's not? What does that mean as we move forward? So I want to start by looking at prices in the GTA. Now, here's where I said we're potentially going to lose a few people as far as the statistics go. The average home price in the GTA in September was just a hair under $1,060,000. So what does this mean for those of you that, well, don't know every single statistic off the back of your hand? The average home price increased 3.6% from August to September. That means absolutely nothing to you. It shouldn't mean anything to you. When you're looking at statistics, you have to look at what happens historically in this time period. Now, on average, August to September price movement, 2002 through 2024 is 4.3%. So yeah, the average home price increased. And here's where the media drives me nuts, because you can make numbers say anything you want. Picture a headline that says, home prices are up. They are up from August to September. Absolutely, they are. Would it surprise you to know that in the last 23 years, the average home price has increased 23 times during that time period? So if the average home price increases every single August to September, who cares if it increased last year? Doesn't matter. So the media might say the average home price increased 3.6%, but if it typically increases on average 4.3%, then we actually had a poor September. There. I don't want to play into the Last Honest Realtor theme here, but I mean, I'm being honest. That's the first thing I noticed in the month of September. So the 3.6% increase, listen, in the last 2 years, it went up 3.1, 3.4, 2023 and 2024. So you might say, hey, well, it's doing better than the last couple of years. But on average, we are well behind what typically happens. So I looked at that in September and I kind of thought, well, okay, what are the words to describe it? It's flat. It's typical. It's boring. Maybe September was boring. It's predictable. No. And here's the one thing, if you listen to my last few podcasts in September, which I will say, it is anything but predictable. The dichotomy between price activity in the city of Toronto right now is massive. Take East Side versus West Side. Like every night I'm seeing houses in Bloor West Village and Roncesvalles and Brockton Village, they get 4 or 5 or 10 offers. And yet every night I'm seeing a whole lot of bagels for offer nights on the East Side. And what we often see on the East Side, take a Tuesday night, 8 properties at $999 to $1,099,000 have offers, right? That coveted starter pocket. One house gets 9 offers and every other house gets 0 or 1, and they all relist. So that's the dichotomy I'm seeing. And what I would say I saw in September was a very flat market, a very balanced market, kind of a boring market, but anything but predictable. So year over year, the average home price in September was down 4.3%. So remember, I said it was up from August to September, but who cares? Because it's up every year from August to September. Talk to me about year over year. So what we saw was a decline of 4.3%. And as we've discussed throughout this year, the average home price year over year in 2025 has been down every single month except for January. January, we came out and we saw, hey, January 2025, average home price is up year over year. Well, that's great. Now, the problem with that is that the January 2024 average home price is the lowest monthly average home price post-peak. So yes, we were up, but we were up from the all-time low. And that begs the question, what will January of 2026's average home price be? Because if it is even lower still, then that means we've hit a new trough. So if we're looking year over year, and again, excuse all the numbers I'm going to throw at you here, folks. I mentioned January's up. Here's the declines February through September. February we're down 2.2%. March we're down 2.5%. April we're down 4.2%. May 3.8%. June 5.2%. July 5%. August 4.9%. And September 4.3%. So here's the conclusions that I draw, and apologies for all those boring numbers. The conclusion that I draw, well, twofold. Number one is that if you were to just sort of look at, I don't know, the last 6 months, April to September, you're between 3.8 and 5%. So I would say on average, year over year home prices are down about 4%. That's a David number. I just kind of picked the middle point. Now, the second point I want to make here is that it went up 5.2, 5.0, 4.9, 4.3. So you could, and here's a fun part about numbers, you can make them say anything you want. So you could look at this as prices are down, but not as much as we move forward. And as we move into October, maybe October's 3.8 year over year. And then maybe November's 3.0 year over year. Bottom line, prices are down year over year. Now, Here's a funny thing, and I'm going to go off on a little tangent here. I'm going to use Leaside at $3 million just as an idea. Leaside at $3 million is up year over year. That market, I don't want to say recession proof because we're not in a recession, but there are certain pockets where I would say, you give me that house, it's up year over year. And further, spring of 2026, it's going to cost more. Now that falls outside of this average here, but the average is made up of an infinite number of averages. We can talk about houses versus condos, low end, high end, east, west. We can talk about York Region and Peel. In fact, we're going to in a moment. Now, I had a conversation with a client a couple weeks ago. We had this family's property on the market. We had an offer night. We got 3 offers. We grinded. We got every single penny. And then the client said, I might wait until next year. Now, I've been hearing that a lot. And I swear on my life, I said to the client, and I meant it, I don't like this idea. I don't like your prospects. Now, there's a carrying cost associated. You want to hold this house for 6 months. You're going to pay, let's say there is no mortgage. There's still opportunity cost in the money, or there is a mortgage and you're paying mortgage payments. You've got your heat, your hydro, your water, you've got your property tax, your security, and you've got to look up on the house because it's empty. What if the pipes burst in the winter? What if there's a break-in, et cetera, et cetera? So let's say that it's going to cost you $20,000 to carry it in next year. The market has got to be that much better. But what I said to this individual is, look, I am realistic about this market and I am bullish in some areas. You give me $3 million in Leaside, I'm bullish. You give me $1.5 million starter semi in Davisville Village, I'm bullish. But with all due respect, and this is just outside the central core, in this area, in this demographic, I think that that pocket could hurt as we move forward. And I won't get into the demographic and the nature of the individuals that are in the area and the type of the property, et cetera, but we're in a very interesting economic climate. And look, the world's changing every single day. But what I'm saying here, guys, is that just as averages are made up of other averages, the entire market is made up of properties that are going to do better and properties that are going to do worse. And so there is an example of where that plays out in real life. So I mentioned we're going to look at York Region and Peel as an example. Listen to this. And we're going back to the numbers here, folks. 2024 versus 2025, the month of September. Now, I mentioned on average, home prices are down 4.3%, but averages are made up of averages. So let's look at this by district. The 416 is down 2.6. So that 2.6 is less than the 4.3. Okay, well, it's outperforming. But if that's outperforming, we know there are going to be some areas that are not doing well. Durham region, September over September, down 3.2%. Halton, down 4.8%. Peel, down 8.6%. And York region, September over September, is down 11.3%. Now, that doesn't mean if your house is in York region, it's down 11.3%. It could be down 3%. Of course, it could be down 18%. That's how averages work. The point is, folks, the average home price is down 4.3%, September over September. And if you boil this down to the individual, the big 5 districts, as I call them, because we're not looking at Simcoe or Cottage Country, if you boil them down, there are areas that are doing better and worse. And it is no surprise to see that the central core is outperforming. So let's look at sales activity, because this has been a major story throughout the year, and it continues to be into the month of September. So if we're talking about September as this big gangbuster month, sellers are getting ready all throughout the summer. I've mentioned in my podcast, my blogs, we spent all July and August renovating properties, getting ready. Yes, we've had some success with some, not so much with others. But what happened with sales? Not a lot. Not a lot, in fact. The average number of sales in the month of September, and this is from 2002 to current, is 7,032. This year we saw 5,592. Way below average. Now that is the 4th fewest sales in any September this millennium. Here's the fun part. Listen to this. The bottom 5 sales figures in the month of September, 2023, 2024, 2022, and 2025. The last 4 years. So listen, if I was to be an optimist, I would say sales the last 4 years in September are at an all-time low. You might have thought average home prices would drop by 70%, but they haven't. And that speaks to the resiliency of the Toronto real estate market. Now I'm sounding like a cheerleader. But listen, I look at the data and that's what I see. I've always said, if you were to take the proverbial widget, for those of you that went to business school, I don't know, you were to take any product or service and you were to say, let's double inventory and let's cut demand by 2/3. Prices would plummet. You don't have to go to business school to understand that. Supply and demand, okay? Draw an X. Let's get it on an axis. Let's start moving the lines around. Yet in Toronto real estate, that's not what we've seen. So I'll say this. The most sales we ever saw in the month of September was 11,000 plus. That was in 2020. That was all the built up demand through the missed months in COVID. But you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other months over 8,000. And last month we saw 5,592. That's a pittance. But as I said, you can make numbers anything you want to. And here's a positive stat. I'm not looking hard for this, but if you look at what August to September does typically, well, it's not like it is with prices where it's gone up 23 times in 23 years. In fact, in 2022 and 2023, sales went down from August to September. Sales went down 10.5% August to September in 2022. Sales went down 12.3% August to September in 2023. And last year sales went up, but it was up 0.4%. So here's the positive stat, guys. Sales went up 7.3% August to September. That is the largest August to September increase since 2002. It's almost a quarter century. So maybe I'm making numbers say anything I want, or maybe I'm just looking and finding something here that actually gives us a bullish indicator. Now, sales the fourth lowest of all time, bearish. Average home price increasing less than average, bearish, sure. But there's one indicator that I'm looking at that is incredibly positive. You could call it an outlier, but I don't see that. Now, just to show you that I'm still being honest, I'm going to move on to give you an update on what sales are doing this year. I mentioned, and I continue to mention over and over, that in 2023, we saw the lowest sales of all time in the city of Toronto. By all time, I mean this millennium, because I can't go back to, 1930. That's all time, but it doesn't really make sense. So I look at data from 2002 onwards. It's also where the Toronto Real Estate Board started redistricting. I won't bore you with the details. 2023 saw the lowest sales ever. In 2024, sales were up by like a hair. You cannot possibly get lower than the sales we saw in 2023 and 2024, which were 66,000 and 67,000 respectively. We're going to see about 58,000 sales this year. It's wild. Now, listen, September, we saw an increase in sales over the last 2 years. August, we saw an increase in sales over, one of the last 2 years. July, we saw an increase in sales over the previous 2 years. But we are pacing, guys. We are pacing right now for just under 60,000 sales. And the all-time low, 66,316 in 2023. And as I said, just shy of 68,000, 67,984 sales in 2024. And we are pacing, if this trend continues, we are pacing 58 to 59,000 sales. That is wild. And in case you're wondering, the record for sales, I don't have it in front of me, but it was 2021 and it was over 122,000 sales. So as I said, picture another industry. So what do we say about 58, 59,000? And our record is 122,000. So quick math, that's about a 55% drop. So show me another industry for another product or service where there's a drop in demand by 55% and inventory skyrockets. I mean, what would happen if, the diamond industry, there's a good one. What if all of a sudden no one wanted to buy diamonds and there was infinitely more of them? Although I think they'd probably figure a way around that since they've done a pretty good job. Bad example, but you know what I'm getting at. And this again speaks to the resiliency of the Toronto real estate market. Now I mentioned inventory. Let's go to inventory. So you've got to take 2020 out of the equation because in 2020, don't forget, we had this thing called the pandemic and all of the people that didn't buy or sell or transact or do anything during the pandemic, it just shifted it down the road. So we saw 20,000 plus listings. That's the all-time record. But in second place on that list is 19,260 from September 2025. And that beats the previous non-COVID record, which was the year before, 2024, 18,089. And then, this is what I love about data. Before that, it was 2017. Remember what happened in 2017? The market dropped in April. It felt like 2022 all over again. Or actually, I should say 2022 felt like 2017. And before that, it was 2023. And before that, it was 2008. I'm going to draw a line here. 2008, worldwide financial crisis. 2023, well, it was 2 years ago, post-peak. 2017, that was another dip. 2024, post-peak. And then we have this year, 2025. So it's funny because I showed you the sales data earlier, and I said the bottom 4 months, not in order. They were 2024, 2023, 2025, and 2022, something like that. But point is, they were the last 4 months. And then you look here, and you see, well, 2022 is not on here. In fact, we didn't have a lot of listings in 2022 in September. But you look at 08 and 17, where when the market dipped, and then you've got 23, 24, and 25. Sorry for all the numbers. So 19,260 listings. And that to me is absolutely wild. Now, the relationship between listings and sales gives you that absorption rate. And the absorption rate is a ratio. Take the number of sales, divide it by the number of listings. And that speaks to the movement in the market, the reverse statistic. People call it months of inventory, if you ever hear that. I don't particularly love that. I like the ratio. So it's expressed as a percentage. Now, under 50% signals a buyer's market. In reality, it's not. Under 40% would. What would you call under 30%? Because that was the absorption rate in September, 29%. To get to that number, you've got 5,592 sales, 19,260 listings, 29%. Now, let's look at the flip side of that. What's at the top of this list? The highest absorption rate ever in the month of September, 67.3%. That was 09. And no surprise to see second on the list here, 67.1% was 2021, which, as I mentioned, was the record year for real estate and sales. Now, highest price ever, that was February of 2022, just off that 2021 peak. But this makes perfect sense. And once again, the bottom 3 months for absorption rate in the month of September, 2024, 2023, 2025. So the market is basically doing what it's been doing. This is, as I said, I mentioned it like it was boring in the month of September. It was flat. It was balanced, not predictable. But a 29% absorption rate, that's really poor. Under 50% signals a buyer's market. Yeah, okay. If you had a 50% absorption rate, I think it's still a seller's market, because the way that Toronto's always gone, it is kind of a seller's market. And even still in this buyer's market out here right now, sellers are still acting like it's not. So if you get 9 offers on the offer date, you don't have to sell. You can terminate, you can relist, you can do whatever you want. But a 29% absorption rate makes it really, really difficult as a seller to feign any leverage whatsoever. Now, if you want to look at the trend this year for the absorption rate, the highest we saw was in the summer, 34.6%. That's the highest absorption rate in any month in 2025, which is just wild. And we're now back down to the aforementioned 29%, which basically puts us back, into a March, April, May period. So again, you look at the month of September, and I came into this podcast saying, I want to look at September. I want to know, have we seen this big pickup? All the people that are like, yeah, the market's going to come back this fall. It's big. It's September. I'm going to get my listing ready over the summer. I'm going to bring it out in September. It's a great market. It's a seller's market. A 29% absorption rate. Holy moly. Now, one more stat here. Active listings. What are active listings? New listings, the number of new listings that come out that month. Active listings, how many properties were listed on the last day of the month? Now, why this number is significant this year is because it's gone cuckoo bananas. I think that's an economic term. I think I learned that in second year business. Yeah, no, okay. So 20,000 active listings, that's a big number. And I've written about this all year. In fact, I did a previous podcast where I talked about the number of months in every year where we saw 20,000 plus active listings. This year we started to see 30,000 plus. We saw 30,000 plus for the first time in May, and it continued into June and into July. And then in August, it dipped down to a mere 27,495. But in September, we're almost back up. We saw 29,394 active listings. That is a lot of real estate on the market. Now, on the flip side, if you go down to like the fewest active listings in any month since 2002, you see some months where there were less than 4,000 active listings. There's just nothing for sale. Now, the irony is, ask any real estate agent out there right now who's working with buyers. It's the same story. I can't find what I need. So you could talk about quality listings. Unfortunately, there's not a statistic for that. I wrote a blog once where I joked and I said, Toronto Real Estate Board should hire me. And all day I just flip through listings and I go, junk, junk. Oh, here's a good one. And I make a statistic for quality listings. I don't think I would get that position. But the point is, out of 29,394 active listings, how many of these are on their 7th listing and no one wants to buy it? How many of these are overpriced by 20%? How many of these are sellers that don't really want to sell or playing pricing games? How many of them suck? How many of them look like crap? How many of them are not cleaned, renovated, painted, staged like we did when the market was booming? So there is something to be said about the lack of quality of listings out there right now. But again, I don't want to put such a rosy spin on this. 29,394 active listings is a ridiculous number. And keep in mind, and so here's what's funny. I've got a list here of the most active listings in any single month. June of 2025, May of 2025, July of 2025, September of 2025, August of 2025, April of 2025. Dating back to 2002, the top 6 on the list are all in 2025. Then we have September of 08, October of 08, May of 08, and November of 08. What happened in 08? Worldwide financial crisis. And you know what? Canada came out unscathed because we have a very safe banking system. And history has shown that, obviously, and credit to CMHC after 08. They took measures to strengthen the banking system even more. But as it goes, and 08 did, you continue to see a lot of properties listed for sale. We had no recession or anything like that, but that's just the way the market went. And here we are 17 years later, and we've surpassed all those records for active listings. So the last thing I want to look at here, guys, is the rental market. Because the rental market is so intertwined with everything else. And what I mean by that, let's first start with condos. How many people went to sell a condo this year, couldn't, and then put it up for rent? Lots? Right. That's the first reason why the rental market is so important. And secondly, is because if I were to take a top-down view of what's happening in this market right now and where are the sales coming from? The people that are not handcuffed, I would say the young first-time buyers that do not have any equity in the market and have complete freedom to act, okay, cool. You rent, you live with your parents, you've got a down payment, you can go buy a condo for $500,000 that might have cost $650,000 at the peak. Good for you. On the flip side, the downsizers, your house is worth $4 million. You paid $285,000 for that house 35 years ago and you want to downsize? Okay, perfect. The two ends of the spectrum, those are the people with the most freedom. The people that cannot transact, cannot. The people that bought at the peak and are going to lose if they sell, their equity is gone. So let's say you bought for $1 million and now your place is worth $900,000. There's land transfer tax, there's real estate fees, there's legal fees. Say that it's going to cost you $170,000 or that's your loss. That's your equity. So if you want to move, you can't. Unless you have money from mom and dad, or you got a bonus, or you've got other money somewhere. So those folks are stuck. And when I look at the transactions that are happening, as I said, I look at the very entry level and I look at the top down. And of course, there are other folks. Like one of my bread and butters, my bread and butter, let's say, is a typical move-up buyer. Somebody says, hey, we're looking for our forever house. I always use lease side. I've sold 6 lease-side houses for $3 million to people that own 1.4 to 1.6 semis. That is a classic, as I said, bread and butter part of my business. Those people were not really affected, but they owned their house for the last 10 years. So maybe they paid $1 million for their semi, and maybe at the peak it was worth 1.8, and now it's only worth 1.55. Well, guess what? They've still got a ton of equity. They've been there for 10 years. They've been promoted. They've gone through the motions and now they can go up and buy. Those people are able to move. But there's so much of the buyer pool that just can't move because they bought at the wrong time. Now, back to the rental market, and that's the point I was trying to make, kind of long-winded, but I feel like the rental market can tell us a lot about the overall market. And this speaks to investors, this speaks to people that maybe are moving out, keeping the condo and renting it. It speaks to a lot of different things in the market. And I want to look first at the lease listings. And now this is just C1 and C8, that's downtown, and it's just condos. When you look at year over year in Q3, because we just came out of it, lease listings were down 10% year over year in August and down 12% year over year in September. Now, who cares? Boring stats. Thank you, David. But here's the point I want to make, guys. Condos leased up 6% year over year in August and up 11% year over year in September. So what am I getting at? This goes back to the conversation we had about the resale market when you say that if inventory skyrockets and demand falls, then the absorption rate falls. And then it becomes a buyer's market. So in the rental market, we've got listings down, units leased up, and what that means, if you're following along, is a massive increase in the absorption rate. So in August, year-over-year absorption rate is up 14%. In September, year-over-year absorption rate is up 16%. So just to give you an example, the absorption rate in the month of August was at 98%. And if you go back, 83%, 81%, 83%, 82%. That's 2024 to 2021. So what we're seeing right now in the downtown rental market is strength. Now, why is that? It's rhetorical. I can't tell you exactly why, but I'm saying this is something that we've got to watch. The rental market is strong. When I look at the listings we've had, we're getting 5, 6 offers on rental listings, and the landlord has choice. And it's not just about, you put it up for $2,200 and someone offers you $2,250. It's not about that. You want the right tenant. You want to make sure they're not going to screw you. You want to make sure they're not going to trash the place. It's different than in the resale market where all that matters is the money. And of course, condition, and of course, term and deposit and closing. But for the most part, you only care on the resale side of things about the money. The rental market, you care about quality of tenant. But I think that speaks to a change, whereas coming out of COVID, we had this massive issue in the rental market where people couldn't afford it. And you had, Doug Ford saying, don't pay your rent. That was a good idea. But now we've come full circle and we're seeing strength in the rental market. And this is something that is going to be crucial moving forward. Because if we see strength in the rental market, it means that a lot of these would-be condo sellers can keep their units, rent them. And maybe they'll absorb a loss. That's another part of it too. But what if you took a lot of the condo stock out of the market? Because I have a theory on the average home price. And it goes like this. When you have more condos selling, and they're obviously cheaper than houses, well, that's going to bring the average home price down. And when you have more houses selling, they cost more on average than condos. That's going to bring the average home price up. It's not a theory. It's a fact, right? I think that math kind of added up. So if we're going to see fewer condo sales because more people are going to keep the units and rent them, well, it's possible that maybe the average home price is inflated. People aren't going to love me saying that. So guys, the conclusion that I draw after looking at the September data is this. Nothing has changed. I think a lot of people wanted it to. A lot of people felt like, okay, this is it. You know what? The spring, man, that was a slog. But the fall's going to be busy. Now, why is the fall going to be busy? There's one reason among the real estate agent community and the seller community out there for why the fall is going to be busy. Ready? Because they want it to be. I mean, maybe affordability, maybe interest rate cuts, but in all seriousness, the only reason why people really thought that the fall was going to be busy was because they just hoped that it would be. There's no reason to believe otherwise. As I said, the data here shows average home price, yeah, it's down about 4% year over year. If we're taking an average of the last 6 months, sales are at an all-time low, inventory is at an all-time high. Now, the 416, the central core, it's outperforming. And by that I mean, if York Region's down 11.3% as it was year over year in September, and Toronto's only down 2.6%, okay, it's outperforming because the average is down 4.3. And again, I will swear up and down, if you have a semi-detached home on Hillsdale or Foreman or Taunton, just naming streets in Davisville Village, that house will sell for more next spring than it will today. That is going up. That part of the market's going up. The $3 million house in Leaside on a 30 by 120 lot, 4 beds, plus 1 in the basement, 5 baths, private drive, 14-year-old custom build, that's going to be worth more next year. But there's a lot of property types and a lot of geographic pockets that won't be. Averages are made up of other averages. And so what I'm seeing now, if the Bank of Canada interest rate cut in September did not move the market at all, and we've come down from a 5% lending rate to 2.5%, and sales remain at an all-time low, nothing has really moved this market. So a lot of the real estate community, you got to pump the tires. They're not going to love me saying this. And it sounds kind of cheeky. The whole topic, the idea was the Last Honest Realtor. Oh, did I mention there's a RICO complaint for the Last Honest Realtor? Yeah, probably an agent named Becky. Actually, no, it's probably like a mod, somebody from Ottawa. I saw a Facebook group about it. He's the Last Honest Realtor? That is terrible. We need to file RICO complaints for him to say that. Yeah, mod. It's a play on words is what it is. It's the idea that the public doesn't like us, and there's probably some reason for that. So it's my way of saying, all right, you know what? Listen, okay? No one's honest in this business. That's what you're telling me. Well, here's the Last Honest Realtor. Yeah, I don't think Maud understood the tongue-in-cheek nature RICO complaint. I think RICO's got their hands full with the iPro Realty scandal. So the point is, maybe some folks won't love the data that I'm throwing at you, but what I see here is that if we didn't see a bump in September, if we didn't see a bigger increase, and again, the average home price increase, but not enough. Sales increase, but not enough. Interest rates are down. Nice weather. It's a great time to be out there. Inventory, selection. But if we're not seeing a huge uptick in September, there's absolutely no reason to think we're going to see it in October or November. And if we're not going to see it in October or November, then here we are, post-Thanksgiving, talking about 2026. That's my conclusion. I wish it weren't so. We moved some listings. We moved some tough ones. We've got other ones that are sitting. But guys, this fall market, for what it's worth, right until December 31, it's going to be what it's going to be. It's not going to change. It's not going to get better. It's not going to get worse. It just is what it is. And people in Toronto are so unaccustomed to that. We were in a red hot market for so long. And now, save for your friend that got 14 offers on her Roncesvalles listing, yeah, that's great. But for every one of those, there's probably 30 that just aren't cutting it. And that is my conclusion. The 2025 real estate horizon looks to be extending as far as the eye can see and into 2026. So maybe it's too early to give you a prediction on the 2026 real estate market, but February of 2026 will have been exactly 4 years since our peak. Now, real estate cycles usually move in 7-year periods. Of course, tell that to all the folks that witnessed a 20-year bull run in Toronto, which was a little less than 3 times as long as the average real estate cycle. So I could make an argument that 4 years after the peak, next year we'll start to see some run up. Interest rates are going to be lower. We're going to see at least one cut. We'll go down to 2.25. Maybe by the end of the year, the bank rate's at 2%. If the bank rate finishes at 2%, and if you figure, okay, the worst is behind us, we've set a new record for all-time low sales in the city of Toronto in 2025 with, as I mentioned, somewhere between 58 and 59,000. I do see some light at the end of the tunnel for 2026. I think that this is the last part of the flat market. And yes, now I'm being optimistic, but I've got to think that as we move into 2026, all this will fall by the wayside. Anyways, guys, that is it for me for this week. Thank you so much for watching. As always, if you're on YouTube and you like or don't like what I have to say, feel free to drop me a comment. Please remember to like, comment, or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Music, Spotify, ICQ, MSN Messenger. God, those were the days. And thanks again for watching, folks. I will see you here next time on The Last Honest Realtor.